U specijalnom izdanju Opservatorija vodimo vas na italijansku sedmicu tehnologije. Saznajte koji su novi trendovi u tehnologiji. Hoće li TV voditelje zamijeniti avatari ili digitalni ljudi? Koji su sve sigurnosni izazovi novog virtuelnog svijeta? I kako je u njemu evoluirala kripto-umjetnost?
Buongiorno a tutti. Per questa puntata ci troviamo a Torino.
Nekadašnji glavni grad Italije smješten je u podnožju Alpa na 4 rijeke. Poznat je po čokoladi Gianduioto, Fiat automobilima i nogometnom klubu Juventus. Ovaj grad kraljevske prošlosti odnedavno je i simbol budućnosti. Rekonstrukcijom željezničkog kompleksa Officine Grandi Riparazioni postao je glavno čvorište za digitalne inovacije. Upravo na ovoj lokaciji održan je i najvažniji događaj u Torinu – italijanska sedmica tehnologije. Glavne teme ovogodišnjeg okupljanja jesu Metaverse, digitalni ljudi i kripto-umjetnost. Metaverse je zasigurno naša nova internetska stvarnost. Ovo fizičko i digitalno spajanje iskustava stvara figitalni prostor u kojem se kreira jedan potpuno novi svijet. Ljudi u njemu kreću se u 3D ili u vidu avatara, digitalnih meta-ljudi i komuniciraju sa drugim meta-ljudima ili virtuelnim entitetima. Dobre vijesti iz budućnosti jesu da tradicionalni mediji neće izumrijeti, ostaće na svojim tračnicama. Ali novi mediji, zajedno sa svojom publikom, sigurno se sele u virtuelni prostor. Ukratko, jedni će čitati vijesti sa web portala, dok će drugi figitalno ući u web stranice koje pregledavamo. Više o ovim svjetovima otkriva nam Filippo Rizzante, šef tehnologije kompanije Reply, vodeće u Italiji za dizajn i primjenu rješenja za nove komunikacijske mreže i digitalne medije.
We, as a company, we are working in the different innovations. So some of them are really already day to day, like artificial intelligence or use of algorithms and data. Others are more, let me say, exploring trend. So we are quite strong, for example, in quantum computing or in swarm robotics as well, so the use of real robots, mobile robots in the ground, and a lot around the progression of 3D technologies, especially real-time 3D, which is the base of the technology of the Metaverse. So Metaverse is about the transformation of many industries, especially the media industry. It will impact a lot in the future. But already some of the technology can be used today for doing a lot of interesting stuff. The media industry will be impacted because it's about producing, let me say, digital contents. So by now we mostly have the capability to produce 2D content, bidimensional contents, and not real, let me say, three-dimensional contents with real-time 3D. So means also interactivity of the content itself. So not having just a pure video, but also interface that can interact with the end users. Social metaverse is mainly some of the platforms are evolving to be the next kind of social media, especially where people will be represented as digital humans, means avatars, and where people can interact and play or exchange information like in any social network. But the main context will be, again, about a 3D interface. So the difference between the social media today and the future metaverse social platforms will be about a different kind of interaction, which is about a 3D interaction and not a bidimensional interaction. So it's not just like an Instagram of the future or a Meta of the future, it's a completely different kind of world.
But latest hype is also about interface technology. What are the benefits of conversational interfaces, but also what are the downsides and the dangers?
Interfaces, again, have changed a lot already in the past. If you remember, we were just dealing with machines with keyboards or mouse or even with printed cards in the past. Now we are interacting in many different ways with machines, with touch, with gesture, with voice. That's, again, the ability of using different kind of interfaces means that it should be as natural as possible for humans. So, for example, voice interfaces will not replace normal screen interface, simply because when you are talking to a machine, everybody hears what you are saying. So sometimes you don't want to use the voice, you want to use other kind of interfaces. So voice interfaces are used for different purposes. So like, for example, when you are in a car, it's quite normal to interact with the machine using the voice and not with the gesture. So we have not to think on the same way for each kind of interface. We have to change the way in which we are building apps or any kind of interaction with the machine, depending on the interface.
Both of these trends, the metaverse and digital humans, have a great transformation potential. But which will happen first and why? What do you think?
The metaverse is also about an ecosystem. So building ecosystem is quite a long journey. So it will require, I think it will start essentially because of the gaming sector. So gaming sector is quite a huge industrial sector, video gaming. So I mean, we talk about more than $200 billion worldwide. And if you think about gaming sector today, it's quite traditional. So you buy the single content or the single experience. There is no Netflix, there is no Spotify in the gaming sector. So what I think Meta or the other player are trying to do is really building the next generation of gaming platforms where if you are a player, you can go from one experience to the other, bringing your status as a player or your assets as a player from one game experience to the other. That's where I think the business will start from, and then we will have all the enterprises joining because of commerce, because of any kind of, let me say, business opportunity that you will have in this big, let me say, metaverse world. Digital human is more using the same technologies, which is the back of the metaverse, for other purposes. So you can have already today quite a good level of a representation of a human in the digital world, having in the back a real, let me say, human or artificial intelligence. And having this kind of 3D representation even in real time, you can think of producing a lot of way to interact with, let me say, end user or to produce contents, as I was saying before. You can see then some example in our booth about it.
But what about the access to this networked virtual world? Not everyone can join.
Well, actually, one of the characteristics of the metaverse is that it is device independent. It means that you don't have to think the metaverse just with VR goggles or augmented reality devices. You will have the access through a simple mobile phone or even, let me say, any kind of screen or any kind of other interfaces. So a sort of multi-device, like Netflix is, for example.
And what about the internet bandwidth? Will it take all that burden?
Well, there are some bottlenecks in this kind of journey. One is the internet bandwidth, and the other one is about, let me say, computational capacity. So 3D requires as an interface much more CPUs rather than bidimensional interfaces. So, and there is, let me say, in the progression of computers, quite a slowdown in our capability of doing the miniaturization of CPUs. So that's, let me say, the tricky part.
Još jedan nezgodan izazov nesumnjivo je pitanje sigurnosti u virtualnom svijetu. Italija je prošle godine osnovala Nacionalnu agenciju za kibernetičku sigurnost zbog sve veće potrebe za ublažavanjem kibernetičkih napada. Na čelo ove agencije tadašnji premijer Italije Mario Draghi postavio je Roberta Baldonija, nekadašnjeg oficira za vezu sa NATO-om i EU NIS direktivom za mreže i informacijske sisteme. Baldoni ističe da je virtualni svijet izložen mnoštvu prijetnji i zaštita od njih odgovornosti države, ali i pojedinca.
These are software vulnerabilities, which means that, any software that is aging actually create new vulnerability that you have to fix, like you do in your mobile phone. You are asked sometimes to download the new OS version. In this new version, there will be a lot of fix for security reasons. The same is for any kind of software. So these vulnerabilities that are created continuously are used by attackers in order to introduce inside your information system. And then they can do espionage, they can lock everything through ransomware, so using a crypto locker, they can do a lot of, inside operation. The digital transformation is a cultural change. So we don't live anymore only in the physical world. We live also in this digital world. And as such, we really need to have new rules and everyone has to embed these new rules inside itself. We are not talking about, now we have the National Cybersecurity Agency, so every citizen is fine with cybersecurity. It doesn't work like that. So anyone has to take care of its own cybersecurity, starting from the citizen to the manager, to the government person, and this has to be done. And the reason of the agency is to create, a specific point where everyone can get information on how to defend itself according to, its status.
You mentioned the steps, but what would be crucial measures to be made in order to, protect ourselves? Because digital and virtual world is evolving and cyber attacks are evolving.
Absolutely.
With it.
That's why we need an agency, because it's not like I give you a rule and you have to obey to this and you are fine. Because technology change, the attack change, the methodology of the attack, the scheme of the attack, and that's why you need an interconnected world of agencies that study the new type of attack and publish rules that anyone has to follow in order to be protected with respect to that attack. So that's the exercise that we have to do at the country-wide level, at the worldwide level.
Yeah, we need regulations, we need laws, but still it's also evolving faster than any public policy and law we have so far. So how are we to tackle this cyber challenge?
We have to, we have to establish points important. Any country should have a national cybersecurity agency, so a group of people that work every day with this kind of issue. And every industry, every public administration, every citizen has to look at new threats and they have to follow the new configuration, the new rule that they have to do in order to save themselves and to raise the level of protection of their companies. This is our exercise that we have to do in the next years. We cannot do anything. Till the digital transformation goes further and further, you will have more and more vulnerabilities, and we have to live with that. So it's a kind of risk management process, and we have to be used to do that. Everyone has to learn how to do it.
Talking about risk management, just to wrap it up, you mentioned the collaboration between countries on this virtual digital level, but what about trust? Because most of these countries do not get along with each other.
Yeah, that's true. That's a big issue, but we definitely have to work with as many countries as possible, because the problem is global. No one can believe seriously to face the cybersecurity threat in isolation. Of course, it will be very hard, I think, coming up with norms or international regulations. So what we have to do is to improve at maximum the information sharing between technicians in order that any country then can issue their rule in order to mitigate any attack. Of course, we are talking about mitigation. It's not avoidance of risk. There will be always a probability that some hacker will get into your system, but what we have to do is to make it very difficult.
Svoje sigurno mjesto ispod kibernetičkog neba pronašli su i umjetnici. Sve je veća popularnost digitalnih umjetničkih dijela. Potreba i interes za njima toliko su porasli da je Serena Tabaki osnovala muzej savremene digitalne umjetnosti.
We started the museum back in April 2019 in London, and the idea came from a need. There was no art institution that was looking into digital arts in a decentralized way. So we decided to open up a museum that could inform people about the use of technologies applied to art and making it accessible to all worldwide.
And what can we see in that kind of museum?
We can see, of course, digital art, and the beauty of it is that you can see it in the Metaverse, but also in physical locations. So we normally run pop-up shows that are way more sustainable, that are fixed location. So for example, this one that you're looking at right now is an exhibition that is part of a virtual artist residency through which we support artists globally.
And how do you curate digital art pieces and non-fungible tokens, NFTs? What is the criteria to call this technology an art?
Well, we need to understand that NFT is not just art, doesn't translate as art. It's a standing technology that supports the uniqueness of a work of art. So that means the artist can prove the provenance, so like a signature on a canvas, and make sure the art gets also to the collector in a transparent way. So through one wallet to another wallet supported by the blockchain. So it's kind of a signature that also gives artists the possibility of gaining royalties in a decentralized manner. So there's no third person in between the artist and the collector. Therefore, art becomes something that is extremely accessible, but also you can directly support artists you love.
But would you say that then digital and crypto artists are becoming little capitalists, like Brian Eno said, in a way? Or it is just another level of intrinsically driven creativity?
I believe the second one you said, because it's a creative way of applying technology to something that already existed. We need to remember that digital art is something we've been seeing from the 60s, but for the first time in the last couple of years, artists have been able to directly engage with their public, and therefore the museum supports everything that is about the education and of course the sharing of art that you can see on screen, but also IRL.
What would be the backsides of this simulacrum? Will the digital art outshine the world of fine art?
I don't think so. I think the two worlds will coexist as we are looking at it now. We've seen digital art NFTs appearing at, for example, Miami Art Basel into public installations on the beach, like the one that Iris did with Raffi Canadol. And it's something that will help collectors understanding what it means to collect a digital work of art and how to preserve it in the future. So I very much believe that physical art in the contemporary field will coexist with the digital one.
Na italijanskoj sedmici tehnologije sreli smo i nasljednog šefa planetarne zaštite. Giuseppe Cataldo štiti planetu Zemlju od vanzemaljskih oblika života. Oni se mogu pojaviti prilikom svemirske misije vraćanja prikupljenih uzoraka sa Marsa. Ako Cataldo i njegov tim naprave samo jednu grešku, pojam sigurnosna prijetnja dobija planetarne razmjere.
Yeah, so I'm working on one of the next missions back from Mars. The idea is to bring back samples of rock and atmosphere from the red planet. So my job consists of designing and engineering all the systems that will allow the samples to come back to Earth safely. We want to make sure that they arrive here without, the capsule breaking up in the atmosphere or breaking upon landing. We want to make sure that we bring the samples to the laboratory that we will be building for them to be able to treat them properly since they are coming from another planet. So it's a capsule. We'll put the samples back inside multiple containers. And then the containers will be put inside a capsule in orbit around Mars, and then they will be brought back to our planet on board a spacecraft.
And what did you find so far? Is there anything that we should be afraid of, or we should just accept it?
The rover Perseverance has been finding a lot of interesting chemistry on the planet. We heard a few days ago about organic molecules, but that doesn't mean that there is life. Not at all. Organic molecules can actually be produced by abiotic processes. So we have a lot to learn, and that's why we are bringing them back to Earth.
Okay, thanks. You were also one of the engineers who developed the James Webb Space Telescope. How exciting or stressful was it for you?
Well, it was both. It was definitely very stressful during the construction and the testing of the telescope. It became even more stressful upon launch and then during commissioning, as we were afraid that the rocket might have exploded or that things might might go wrong during the deployment of such a complex instrument. But then on July 12th, well, I became very, very excited to see those amazing pictures and data that we received from the very first time.
And is it possible to start using this Webb telescope for protection purposes as well, or is it solely a scientific project?
I think that's a scientific project. We want to investigate the early universe, understand how the universe formed, evolved into galaxies, stars, planets, and if there might be life on other planets outside our solar system.
Vjerovatno ste primijetili prostor u kojem se održava Italian Tech Week. On je već priča za sebe. U drugoj polovini emisije pogledajte i zašto.
Nekada tvornica vozova, danas tvornica ideja. Officine Grandi Riparazioni ili OGR stoljećima je služio gradu Torinu kao industrijski kompleks, sve do 90-ih i njegovog zatvaranja i rušenja. Godine 2013. fondacija CRT na čelu sa Massimo Lapuccijem otkupila je 35.000 kvadratnih metara ruševina OGR-a za 100 miliona eura. Samo 6 godina posle rekonstrukcija zgrade dala je novi život ovoj takozvanoj katedrali industrijske historije Torina. Danas je ova katedrala najveći hub i tačka spajanja za digitalne inovacije. U obliku je slova H i poput lijeve i desne komore mozga imamo u jednom dijelu zgrade OGR Tech, sjedište tehnoloških giganata i inkubator tech inovacija, a u drugom OGR Kult, mjesto održavanja izložbi, performansa, koncerata i virtualnih muzeja. Dva dijela zgrade spojena su kuhinjom, jer je ovo ipak Italija. Međutim, ništa od ovoga što vidite ne bi bilo moguće da ovaj čovjek nije imao viziju, a kasnije i novac.
This building has a very interesting story. It was built in 1895. It was actually the first industry in Torino, even before the Fiat, the famous automotive industry, was founded. So it was a workshop for train reparation, maintenance, and it worked like that as a center of excellence until 1990s, more or less. During the 90s, it was abandoned, and it almost fell in ruins. And when we acquire as Fondazione CRT, the third largest philanthropic foundation in Italy, we wanted to transform this building. Of course, we did that in accordance with the municipality of Torino, but the foundation, as part of its mission, really wanted to give this building a new life. You have to imagine that this building was practically, no roof, no windows, grass on the floor and on the pavement, so it was completely abandoned. The first challenge was the refurbishment. Well, here in this side, we have now, after 3 years, because this side of the building opened in July 19, and also we had a pandemic in the middle, we managed to develop 14 acceleration programs on very different fields, from smart cities, smart mobilities, finance for good, and also Metaverse for finance, big data. We founded here the first European big data center on social impact. So there's a group of scientists working specifically on this. And so a lot of events, because actually all year round we have not only these 14 programs going on, but also we have the presence here of many corporations that have established here their innovation and tech department, because this is the real role of this building and of this ecosystem. Corporations want their people to stay here and to breathe the same air of the startups, the scale-ups. And so networking, I think, is the real added value that we managed to develop here at the OGR. But it was not for granted, also because we started from scratch. You have to imagine that this building didn't exist, not only on the map of the city, because it has been completely abandoned, but also, and more importantly, on the map of innovation at national level and more than ever at international level. For the future, we are, of course, going on, in developing new projects, but in particular now we are working a lot to projects that can generate an impact at local, national and international level.
O važnosti transformacije OGR-a za grad Torino pitali smo i prvog čovjeka ovog grada, Stefana Lorussa.
Sicuramente uno dei più grandi interventi di riqualificazione urbana che abbiamo mai visto a Torino, è uno dei migliori in Europa. È una ex fabbrica dove si riparavano i treni che diventa un luogo per innovazione, ricerca scientifica e tecnologica e per attività culturali nell'ottica della trasformazione della città.
Ma quali sono state le sfide che la città ha dovuto affrontare per fare delle OGR l'industria delle idee?
Sicuramente una sfida importante è stata possibile grazie al fatto che la Fondazione Cassa di Risparmio di Torino ha creduto fortemente in questo progetto, ha messo in campo risorse importanti e soprattutto per quello che riguarda la ricostruzione, la ristrutturazione dell'immobile ha rispettato le architetture industriali e ha fatto diventare quel luogo un luogo dove si coniuga il passato col futuro.
Penso che alcune cose saranno più difficili da concordare a livello nazionale e internazionale, visto che il centrodestra ha vinto le elezioni e lei è il centro-sinistra.
Sì, ma io faccio il sindaco di Torino, il sindaco deve relazionarsi con tutti i governi a prescindere dal colore politico. E io sono ovviamente un esponente del centro-sinistra, ma credo che nel ruolo di sindaco mi relazionerò sui progetti della città con quello che sarà il governo che verrà. Sicuramente un po' di preoccupazione c'è, però sono anche ottimista.
Alla fine, quali sono le sue speranze per le attività future delle OGR?
Sicuramente il fatto che le OGR siano sempre più integrate con le nuove vocazioni della città, certamente quelle legate alla ricerca, al trasferimento tecnologico, alla relazione con le nostre università. Le OGR sono un luogo pieno di giovani, è un luogo che coniuga oltretutto impresa privata e ricerca pubblica ed è un vero e proprio incubatore di idee, quindi io penso davvero che sia un modello assolutamente vincente, oltre che di grande fascino quando si entra in quel luogo.
Da i Bosna i Hercegovina ima pobjednički model, dokaz je naučnik sa MIT-a Admir Mašić, također jedan od govornika na italijanskoj sedmici tehnologije. Admir je, koristeći tajne drevnog inženjeringa, izumio i patentirao samo popravljajući skoro neuništivi beton, koji može držati konstrukcije zgrada i mostova hiljadama godina. Polusatni intervju s Admirom Mašićem Oni pobjeđuju gledajte u utorak u 21:30 na Al Jazeeri.
Bilo je to sve što su vam pripremili u specijalnom izdanju Opservatorija iz Torina. Emisiju uvijek možete pogledati na našoj web stranici balkans.aljazeera.net. U moje ime i snimatelja Adnela Pašića i Almira Osmanagića hvala vam na druženju i alla prossima!